names mean a lot. If you think about the Hebrew culture, a person's name indicated who that person was. And a lot of times we see in Scripture God change a person's name. You see Abram became Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. The man who was Jacob became Israel. The man who was Simon became Peter. The man who was Saul became Paul. A person's name told who that person was. So when God changed a person's name, He wasn't just changing, their birth certificate and smudging that out. What God was doing when He changed their name, He was changing that person's identity, because there was so much wrapped inside of that person's name. If you're taking notes this morning, I'm going to tell you how many points I got. I got 6, okay? Like my mom said, I try to be brief. I'm going to say it quick, I'm going to say it to the point. 6 points about Jesus. What's in a name this morning, and talking about the Word. Thinking about names, like I said, Jacob. You think about Jacob and Esau, the twins, right? Jacob was the younger brother. They named him Jacob. The name Jacob meant supplanter. You could, again, in the 8:45 service when I preached last week, Jacob is the name of my sound man that didn't show up this week. So, you know what? Maybe it is what's in the name. But the name Jacob, it meant supplanter. You could also say it meant like deceiver. But you think about what he did. He tricked his brother, right? I mean, he tricked his brother. His brother's name was Esau. Now, the name Esau meant hairy one, right? I mean, how would you like to be stuck with that name? I'm not going to name any people out here that I know could be named that, but how would you like to get stuck with that name? But he was, right? Esau, he was an outdoors kind of dude. He had not just red hair all over his body. He was a hairy, burly dude, because, your name was basically your identity. That was who you was. And for me, when I went to name my children, I thought about that, and I put a lot of time and prayer into my names, and I like to think my kids have kind of cool names, and that was one of the things, but I prayed and spent a lot of time on my kids' names, and I've had people, like friends of mine, say, hey, I like your kids' names, will you help me come up with names for my kids? I've never been able to do it, because it was something God gave me, I believe, for each of my children, their names. And, Gavin, for instance, which I didn't have everything together then, honestly, I know I've probably told you this before, honestly, Gavin's first name I heard when I was like in the 7th or 8th grade. One of the bands I listened to was a band called Bush. It was a rock band. The lead singer's name was Gavin Rosdale. And I heard the name Gavin and I went, I've never heard that name before. It's a pretty sweet name. One day when I have kids, I'm going to remember that. And then 2 years later, I had a kid, so I wasn't that young, but I was pretty young. I had a child, and I said, I remember that name, Gavin, but I did look up what the name meant. That name means soaring eagle is what his name means. And as Gavin's when he was I've told you all this before, but when he was born, he was 23 inches long. He's always been a tall kid. It was the tall kid up here playing the bass who, I guess since they coordinated his shirt with the backgrounds and the lights and everything, did y'all come together and do that? That's kind of weird. But anyway, tall kid up here, he's about as tall as I am now. He's like 6'3.5", almost 6'4" now. He's getting on up there. But he's always been, head and shoulders. He's always been tall. He's always been a leader. Just his name, I believe, has a lot. His middle name's Jeremiah, Gavin Jeremiah. And then I had a little girl come along, and I searched through the Bible, and I was looking, and honestly, it was a little vain because I saw a name that looked kind of like my name, Jeremy. It was Jera. And I said, oh, that's a cool name. It sounds like Sarah, but starts with Jer, like my name. And Crystal's like, can I please have a child named after me? I'm the one doing all the work, right? I saw Jera. I looked up what Jera meant, and Jera meant sweet as honey. And I said, when I envision what my daughter will be, I would love for her just to be, just a sweet little girl, sweet as honey. And if you guys know Jera, she's sweet as honey. Her middle name I didn't have until I saw her. I looked for a name. We could not settle on a name. Thought forever about a name, and then the first time I got to put my eyes, Crystal got to see her because we talked about this before, she had C-sections, but I got to spend more time with her because Crystal's in the recovery room or whatever. But I laid eyes on her, and the name came to me, Noelle. And God just dropped into my spirit, her name, Noelle. So her name's Jera Noelle, and she is sweet as honey. All I have to do to my little girl is look at her funny, look at her the wrong way, and it's I think I could probably count on one hand how many times I've spanked my daughter. And then again, Steele is our youngest child, and I've said that before, but I could hardly count on one hand the number of times he's been spanked in one day. But Steele's coming along. We find out, have another surprise. The way I found out Crystal was pregnant was Steele, by the way. My office is Brad's office now. My old office was. And I was at work till I was here at the office. It was about 6 o'clock at night, and Crystal had come by. And there was a pregnancy test sitting on my desk. When I went back into my desk, she had come by, and I was upstairs. There was a pregnancy test sitting on my desk with a note that said, "I'm sorry." And a little plus sign or whatever it was on it. So I'm left to sit down in the dungeon in my basement with a pregnancy test. But anyway, her dad's name's Steve, my dad's name's Phil. And we wanted to name them after our dads. So I mixed those two names together, and eventually I came up with the name Steele. I thought it sounded like a cool football name. His middle name's Isaiah. But the name Steele means heart of steel. So, and any of you guys that know him understand that he is basically his name. He has a cast iron steel wheel, and he will let you know it. If he makes his mind up about something, it's the end of it. You might as well hang it up. You're not going to change his mind. But I'm praying, and I believe that one day God's going to take that and he's going to use it to preach the gospel around the world. Because if he makes his mind up that, hey, it's time for the whole world to know, you're not going to change his mind about it, because that's it. But names mean a lot. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in prayer on my kids' names. Names mean a lot. And in this series, we're looking at the different names of Jesus, the different things that Jesus is called. Number one is the main thing that I'm talking about today, is that Jesus is the Word. We're going to be in John chapter 1, and I'm going to stay there. I'm only going to use one other scripture besides John chapter 1 this morning. John chapter 1, verse 1 and 2 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." Jesus is the Word. Now, I don't want to make anybody's brain start smoking and stuff, smoke start coming out of your ears and your nose start bleeding this morning. But listen, Jesus is the Word. So we're not able to read minds, right? I don't know if any of y'all can read minds. Don't raise your hand, because it's going to creep everybody out around you. I can't read minds. Men, if anybody in here can read minds, it's a woman, because we all know we can't read minds, right? You can't read minds. The way that somebody reveals what's inside of them, their heart, they use their words, right? They speak it. Men, again, our wives, we can read their body language, right? We can tell something's wrong. And automatically, what are we going to do? We're going to say the most horrible question in the world we could ever ask a woman. Can I get a witness? Y'all know what I'm about to say. What's wrong? Automatically, the response is going to be one word. Nothing. Y'all know what I'm talking about, huh? I'm preaching this morning, right? Men, y'all know what I'm talking about. What's wrong? You know you shouldn't ask. You know you don't want to ask. But you ask it anyway, because you know something's wrong. But men, we're not mind readers, are we? Look at a woman right now and say, we are not mind readers. Men, we are not mind readers, ladies. You say what's wrong, nothing. Nothing's wrong. But in all of our genius and all of the instincts that God has placed inside of us, deep down we know something is really wrong. Because there are plates slamming on the bar, on the table. Wait! Why'd you slam that down? What's wrong? Nothing! Nothing is wrong. Nothing. But we're persistent, aren't we, fellas? At least give us that, ladies. Because we will persist. What's wrong? What's wrong? Nothing. 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 But eventually, y'all know what happens. She gets tired of us asking. And then, it's like the little kid that, had his finger in the dam, plugging the hole up. And finally, just took his finger out and the dam just burst. The dam burst. And we know exactly what's wrong. Because she tells us in more words than we could ever hope, imagine, or dream. And she reveals to us what's wrong on the inside by using what? Her words. Because our words reveal what's on the inside, what's going on. Jesus is the Word. Jesus Christ, as the Word, reveals the heart and the mind of the Father. He is the Word, right? It says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. Jesus is the Word. Let's talk about Jesus here. John's talking about Jesus. Jesus is the Word. And just like our words reveal who we are, reveal our heart, and reveal our mind, Jesus reveals the heart and the mind of the Father. Jesus is the Word.